Corinthians 13 verse 1 to 3, the Bible paints to us a powerful picture. It says to us there that though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and I have not charity, I have become as sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. In other words, my prayer is noise making, not proof producing, when the mouth that is uttering the prayer is not connected to a heart of love. What else? In verse 2, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries, and I have all knowledge, and though I have all faith that I can remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And 0 times 1 billion is equal to 0. So if your faith is at 1 billion and your love is non-existent, your faith is cancelled. If your knowledge is at 1 billion and then your love is non-existent, the knowledge is of no consequence. If you have prophetic insight and yet there is no love, the prophecy is of no consequence. So the weight of prophecy in our lives, the weight of knowledge in our lives, the weight of understanding in our lives, the weight of faith in our lives is determined by the availability of love in our hearts. Love is what causes all other virtues to work. Look at what it says in verse 3 of that same scripture. It said in verse 3, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and I went beyond that and even gave my body to be burned, and I have not charity, it profited me nothing. So the profit of our giving is determined by our loving. Our love for God is what causes our giving to God to be profitable. So is it giving? It is love that makes it work. Is it knowledge? It is love that makes it work. Is it understanding? It is love that makes it work. Is it prophecy? It is love that makes it work. Is it faith? It is love that makes it work. Is it prayer? It is love that makes it work. So take love away from it and every other thing is multiplied by 0. Love, therefore, is the multiplication factor for every other virtue in the kingdom. It is the multiplication factor. And that is why it becomes important for us to understand the potency, the relevance, and necessity of this force called love. It is true that faith is vital to prayer, but love is vital to faith. What a battery is to an equipment is what love is to faith. I'm holding the microphone in my hand with very great capacity. By this microphone, I can speak and everybody inside this auditorium can hear. By this microphone, I can speak and people who are even inside the tents around can hear. The microphone has unusual capacity, but without the battery, it is useless. You see, faith may be large in capacity, but without the battery of love, it is useless. It means that to have loveless faith is to have a batteryless faith. What happens when the love is not in place is that the faith will eventually fail. When the battery begins to diminish in an equipment, you will discover that the effectiveness begins to diminish also. It begins to go down. If you have had a clock that has a battery that is dying, do you not discover that the clock does not stop working altogether on the spot? You just notice that one day it is 5 minutes later than it was. Another day it is 10 minutes later than it was. Another day it is 30 minutes later than it was. One day it is 1 hour later than it was. And eventually it is the same time continuously until the battery is changed. There are many who have seen their faith work, but suddenly the effectiveness of faith began to diminish. Why? The potency of love has begun to diminish. When your heart for God goes down, the power of faith goes down.